Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class if you've not been watching my videos. I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everybody. This is Charlie Lambden. This is Moving Home with Charlie. And in tonight's video, I've said some controversial things before and things I thought would get me into trouble and didn't. I'll be surprised if this video doesn't get me into trouble of some kind. That's not what I'm after. What I'm after is for the housing industry and the moving industry to stop ripping people off. But with what has happened and been announced in the news today, my opinion of what's happened is that there is a smoking gun of collusion between the large corporate house builders, not all house builders, but the large corporate ones, and government. And I think what's happened today as a result of the investigation launched last year by the Competition and Markets Authority into effectively price fixing amongst the house builders, I think what's happened today is that the 7 largest builders have just basically bribed their way out of trouble and tried to avoid a massive class action lawsuit that would almost certainly finish them off. And I reckon, and this is just speculation in my opinion, I reckon that they've had the government's assistance in this because without a functioning house building sector, how would the government be able to credibly say it's going to hit its house building targets? So the government doesn't want the house building sector to be effectively rendered insolvent with liabilities that arise out of a class action lawsuit from the hundreds of thousands of new home buyers who have been tricked into overpaying, in my opinion. And this is why I say that transparency is what would fix the housing market faster than anything else. Price transparency. This is why I say that HMRC should reveal the purchase prices of houses at the same time it reveals transaction numbers, which it does every month just for the previous month. And HMRC possesses 100% of that transaction data, including prices. And yet, new homes builders get to conceal the registration with the land registry. They don't have to register the price until years later in some cases. What this means is that basically these big house building firms' profits are achieved only because of the smoke and mirrors on what prices people are actually paying. And they are successfully tricking people into overpaying. Now, for those of you who don't know the backstory to this, I will quickly just cover what happened, and I'll show you the government websites pages that cover that story, so that anyone watching this who's bought a new home from one of these 7 companies can look into whether or not there is a prospect of a successful prosecution, a successful claim for compensation against these guys, because I think there is. I don't think it would be easy. But I do think it's doable because this is tantamount to a whitewash and a cover-up by the Competition and Markets Authority. I've got a clip from the boss of the Competition and Markets Authority being interviewed on Radio 4 this morning, which I will play you. And you can hear her avoiding answering the question, so did they break the rules, yes or no? She's repeatedly asked that question and she repeatedly fails to answer it. And that is why this headline here, of all the headlines I found on today's story, is the most accurate. House builders offer 100 million to make the competition probe go away, to make the Competition and Market Authority stop their investigation from going any further. What they've basically done is say, look, if we give 100 million quid towards affordable housing, if we pay for 100 million pounds of affordable housing, will you stop investigating us? And will you stop the process that's going to lead to a legal declaration of whether we broke the law or not? Can you make this go away if we pay 100 million quid worth of new housing? All of my I don't know how to describe it, but my gut instincts, my feelings, my radar is just going wah, 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 red lights. This fucking stinks. Because what they've done is they've stopped short of the Competition and Market Authority saying, yes, they broke the law. Because if they did say, yes, they broke the law, that would open the floodgates of compensation. And the government doesn't want that, because then the house builders would go under. And by the way, I have it on very good authority that the house builders are about to be announcing their half-year results, and they themselves are a bit of a train wreck. So they're already in trouble. Now, £100 million sounds like a lot of money, but when it's spread across 7 companies, 7 very large companies, it's 14 million quid each or something like that, which is a drop in the ocean, right? These guys, this is the sector that consistently makes the largest party political donations of any industry. More than banking, more than retail, construction is the number 1 donor to political parties. I mean, you can just make what you want of that. Okay. Now, listen, I want to be clear before I get into this. I am not saying that I think all house builders are bad. It's very important that we have a functioning house building industry in this country. And there are plenty of house building firms that are good, that don't rip off their customers, that play by the rules, and that build decent quality homes better than the average of the new homes builders. It's not true to say that they are all shockingly bad quality. A lot of them are, and arguably some people might say that the largest house builders have the worst quality, but that's not what the point of this video is. I don't want anyone to think that I am anti house builders. I'm not. What I am anti is ripping customers off for shoddy products to fulfill political agendas and to simply line shareholders' pockets. That's called exploiting people. It's called ripping people off, and that's not okay. And that's what I would like to stop with this channel. My goal of the channel is a home for everyone, right? And that involves people buying new homes, but not worrying about whether or not they've had to overpay for them. Okay, let me start. Let me just go first of all to this story. And this was announced last year on the 26th of February on the Gov website, the Competition and Markets Authority investigation into suspected anti-competitive conduct by house builders. And this was quite big news at the time. It's quite a big deal, right? The CMA is investigating suspected exchanges of competitively sensitive information by 7 house builders in Great Britain under the Competition Act 1998. And it goes on and talks about everything they're doing. In what I find to be a suspiciously well organized in advance action, if that makes sense. To me, it feels premeditated. Like, we want to stop them doing it. We've got to stop them doing it. It isn't fair. Too many MPs have complained. But also, we're going to be very careful, because if we do this badly or wrong, it could blow up in our faces. This is how the BBC covered it today. House builders to pay £100 million to avoid a legal decision. Now, credit where it's due to the BBC. That headline is one of the most accurate headlines of the news sites. They're paying to avoid the legal decision. Let that sink in, what that means. It's been a very long day, but I couldn't go to bed without addressing this, right? So this is what the BBC said, and they said Britain's biggest house builders have agreed to pay £100 million towards affordable homes to avoid a regulator's decision on whether they broke the competition law. They are paying to stop the investigation. The 7 firms have also agreed not to share commercially sensitive information. Well, hang on a second. That was already the law. What do you mean? So you've now agreed that you're going to uphold the law? You've now agreed that you're going to stop breaking the law? How good of you? How big of you? I mean, what? WTAF. Oh, they've agreed to stop cheating. They've agreed not to share commercially sensitive information, such as how much houses have sold for. And guess what? The majority of house builders said they welcomed the CMA's decision, adding that the £100 million payment is not an admission of wrongdoing. Oh, okay. If there's a big enough uproar about this, they won't get away with it. And they mustn't get away with it. Because what's happened is basically the Competition Market Authority is saying, you guys are cheating. And they've gone behind closed doors, well, we're not going to admit it, but what if we give you £100 million to stop investigating us? Does that work? And someone's gone, yeah, okay, that'll work. We'll just stop investigating you if you pay that £100 million, and we will stop the investigation and avoid the conclusion. Okay, so that's how the BBC reported it. The Construction Inquirer, 7 house builders have offered to pay a total of £100 million following an investigation by the CMA. The 7, Barratt, Redrow, Bellway, Berkeley Group, Bloor Homes, Persimmon, Taylor Wimpey, and Vistry have now agreed to pay £100 million, which will go towards affordable housing programs. The CMA will now decide whether to accept the deal. Right, let me play you what she said. Ready? Sorry, let's just listen to that bit again. An investigation into whether they'd broken the law. Okay, so did they? Did they share it then? The law. We don't have to reach a conclusion. Listen to, I mean, you can smell how much this stinks. No, 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 no. The people who need it are the ones who got ripped off and overpaid because they were cheating. What? No audio? Uh, Sorry, guys. Are you just saying that just that's what you couldn't hear? Why on earth couldn't you hear that? That normally works perfectly. Let me. All right, I'm going to share the link with you to this in the live chat so you can listen to yourselves. I'm not sure why you can't. Normally, when I play stuff, you can hear the audio on it. There's a link in the live chat to listen to this for yourself. In a nutshell, the interviewer on Radio 4 very clearly asked the question, did they break the law? And he repeatedly asks it, saying, people are worried they're overpaid and they want to know whether these guys broke the law. And she doesn't answer the question. She just goes, oh, they're going to pay 100 million quid towards affordable homes and we're focused on the future and we're committed to the future. And she doesn't answer the question. Okay, so yeah, me doing that was basically her dodging the question repeatedly. Okay. I'm very annoyed you can't hear that. I don't know why you can't hear that. Normally when I play stuff on here, you can all hear the audio. But you get the point, right? You get the point. So this is the next question that I asked. Where's my page? I had it set up. Here it is. Here it is. So for those of you, to me, this has class action lawsuit written all over it. I'm not a lawyer. And so far, neither the house builders nor the Competition and Markets Authority have said or done anything that is a smoking gun that makes it easy to take a class action. But to bring a class action lawsuit against a corporation, you need numerosity, a large group of plaintiffs with similar claims. Right? We definitely would have that if it is the case that lots of people can overpay, right? Again, this is just my amateur opinion, right? A large group of plaintiffs, and I hope lots of you get together and do this. Commonality, a common legal or factual issue amongst the plaintiffs' claims. Well, you've all got the same claim. We were misled on price and we were tricked into overpaying. Number 3, typicality. Representative plaintiffs' claims are typical of the class. Obviously, they're all the same. Number 4, adequacy. Representatives and counsel can fairly represent the class. Yes, that's pretty easy because, again, it's all the same. Certifiable class, don't know about that. That's pretty technical, no idea. Valid claim, a legitimate legal cause, e.g. fraud, breach of contract, product liability, with evidence of harm. Yes, I think that's pretty clear. That's what would there'd be plenty of evidence of that. Jurisdiction, proper court, yes, of course, proper jurisdiction. And standing, plaintiffs must show injury caused by the corporation's actions. In other words, you've got to prove that you've come to financial harm, or harm of any kind, but particularly financial harm, maybe other harm as well, as a direct result of these corporations colluding and sharing price data, effectively price fixing, cartel-like behavior, price fixing, which is against the law. So they broke the law and you have lost out as a result. That's the basis of this class action that I think could and should happen. And what needs to happen is a law firm who thinks, hang on a second, yeah, we could probably bring this and make it happen, should go up and say, right, how many of you want to make this claim? And for me, an example of someone who is going to be harmed, someone who's bought a new home who's been harmed by this, is someone who now finds themselves in negative equity and therefore unable to move, unable to sell home, unable to move on with their life. That's a big claim if it can be showed that that purchase was as a result. And the problem is, I think that this could come down to a tactical situation where if enough people get together, and everybody knows they've done it, they know they've done it, everyone else knows they've done it, the Competition and Markets Authority knows that they've done it, right? They'll probably try and put up a bit of a defense, and as soon as they realize that all the publicity is going against them, and that no one trusts them on price anymore, and that that's going to harm their sales of future new homes, they might capitulate. I don't know. This is just pure amateur guesswork on my part. But it stinks. Everyone knows they do it. Everyone knows they've been tricked. They're now colluding with the government, in my opinion, because the government is probably thinking, oh no, the house building sector is too big to fail. So we can't let them fail. So we can't pursue this. And so some of the government has gone to the CMA, stop your investigation. And £100 million is such an insultingly, arbitrarily round number to sound like it's a lot. 100 million, well, that sounds like a lot. Loads of people won't even know how much that really is. It's nothing. It's a derisory, limp-wristed slap on the wrist. Don't do it again. Yeah, okay. Spanish Chicken says, buyer beware. Yeah, caveat emptor, absolutely. But not if they were breaking the law. Not if they were committing breaches of known anti-competition law. Then it's not buyer beware. Because buyer beware doesn't count if the vendors of the product or service you're buying are actually breaking laws. Then it doesn't count. Yeah. Anyway, anyone got any questions or opinions? I'd love to hear questions and opinions on this. Yeah, Patricia, quite right. 100 million is a token relative to the fraudulent profit they make. That's right. And Nick Jones says, we used to have houses mostly built by small companies. Now, no monopolies like now. That's true. And smaller ones were better. Oh, I'm really sorry you couldn't hear that audio. I wish you could. Right, guys, that's all I wanted to say. I didn't have time to research it in more detail. But if you know someone who's bought, this is what I want to finish up with, right? And I've actually got someone from one of those 7 companies has an ex-salesperson who has contacted me saying that they would like to be a whistleblower and explain the tactics that they use. And I've got that person's name. And I haven't ever had a chance to follow up on it. And maybe now is the time to do that and to get a full internal account of what goes on from the salespeople's point of view. Because I get asked the question all the time, Charlie, how do we know what overpaying is? How do we know whether we're overpaying or not? How do we know if it's a fair price? How do we know what we should be paying? And what most of these new home buyers, especially first-time ones, say is, but the salespeople tell us that that's the price and there's no movement on the price. And what happens is if those professional sales guys who do it all day, every day are compelling enough, a lot of people go, oh, well, we want the house. And if that's the price, then we'll just pay it, right? Those of you who are more experienced negotiators often negotiate prices lower than that. And that is why they don't want to publish the sold prices. They don't want other people knowing what deals that they've done. Because if they did, they wouldn't be able to maintain their high list price. and the high price that they need to put into their shareholders reports about what their average retail price is, their average unit price, what's happening with their average unit price. That's what they trade off. That's why they do all of these, oh, we'll pay your mortgage for a year, all these, we'll give you a free electric car, we'll give you all these incentives, because the most important thing is we must maintain the illusion of a high price, even if we have to give you 50,000 quid's worth of stuff to pay this high price. And I've done lots of videos on why you should never take those incentives. You should say, no, I want a discount off the price. And if you're the only buyer and haven't got other buyers willing to pay mug prices, you will often get it at a lower price than they wanted. And then no one else knows about it. They don't have to publish it. And that's where transparency would help. And this Competition and Market Authority probe, which I was so happy to see it happening, I don't know why it came about, and I wish I did. Obviously came about because they were taking the piss so much that it had to stop. Because governments just don't intervene like this unless someone's really taking the piss and it's got to stop. But if there was transparency, and people say house builders have to make profits. Yes, they do. Of course they have to make profits. But necessity is the mother of invention, right? And they will find more efficient ways to build houses. They will find ways to reduce their costs if they must. Okay, what happens is when they get away with charging higher prices, they get away with not having to worry about the cost so much because they're still hitting their margin targets. But this is where free markets must operate freely. And I know none of them are completely free. And I know there's all kinds of intervention and all kinds of skullduggery that goes on. But if there was transparency, it would improve affordability. And because it would force better competition amongst the house builders. And that benefits the consumer. It would force them to be more efficient. And it would force them to perhaps stop paying, this is a fact, £500 million bonuses. Okay, Persimmon paid out £500 million of executive bonuses. That puts into context how derisory and small and pathetic this 100 million quid is for 7 companies, when one company alone was able to pay £500 million in bonuses. Bonuses, right? So this total £100 million fine is 20% of one of those companies' bonuses. Doesn't it make you sick? Honestly, doesn't it make you sick? The debt people get into to buy these often crappy new homes that aren't going to last. Chris Jordan, the money won't go to the government. They're saying the money's going to go to affordable homes, but Patricia says, if the CMA is as good as the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, forget about anything meaningful happening at all. You have shoddy developers dealing with bureaucrats, same as the FCA, astute banksters versus bureaucrats. Anyway, guys, I'm going to finish up with this comment from Jay. They clearly know they would be up shit creek, both financially and reputationally, were a legal judgment to be made against them. I imagine some very damaging emails would also come to light. Well, that's what I'm hoping. And again, I don't know about this, but I'm hoping that an aggressive enough law firm that sees a big enough opportunity here will use every ounce of the law available to get hold of those records that prove that they broke the law and that prove that therefore people were misled into overpaying and have been harmed. On that happy note, guys, have a good evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Don't let them get away with it.